a second for there we go.
Yep. All right,
Like
you
you
guys.
disappeared completely.
I know you went away too. Okay, we're back.
Yay!
So, April is Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, and Lauren and I have some stories to share. So, we are going to start with Lauren's. Every time we're going to start with Lauren's story about her own experience, and then she'll kind of hop into what happened to her family in a situation that might give you guys a peek into, why she had to walk a walk she walked.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. Walk a walk she walked.
Walk a walk she walked.
So,
How
do you want to start this?
I mean, there's a lot of stories, so I'll just go with my journey with my kids and that side, because if not, we would be on for hours.
Yeah.
And the story is somewhat public. So basically, several years ago, 2 of my kids.
Oh, hold on. It is doing something very weird. I am so sorry. Oh,
we're together.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to split the screen. I'm so sorry. Okay. This is not what I want.
Okay, so for those who are not watching us on YouTube,
yes,
Leslie somehow just put us in like a jungle scene.
It was like a Jungle Book staircase,
side by side.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if we were there instead of, these aren't happy stories. So I really was not trying to take away from what was about to be told.
Great, like comedic.
Yes, relief. So
we gonna hang out in the jungle together and talk?
Yeah, I mean that sounds good.
Okay,
I got some bug spray.
Perfect. And I have a big thing of water, so you can't see it in the jungle.
Oh no, you couldn't.
So
okay.
Great. So I have a kid at my door, I think. Yes, I told you all to get snacks and eat whatever you want. Oh yeah.
Just eat away.
I said to leave me alone.
Yeah, I guess we had that same conversation.
So long story short, I had a very difficult story come to light with 2 of my kids a few years ago. And I'm gonna be somewhat vague on their story because it's their story. Like I said, it's out. Like there's definitely pieces that I've written on my blog, and we'll link those in the show notes if people want to go and read a little more. Honestly, I should probably go back and look because I wrote a lot of stuff in trauma, and I don't even know what's actually out there. There's one piece that I know because I get a lot of responses from literally people around the world who have read it. I get emails, I get people sliding into my DMs on Instagram, who share their stories with me because I put this particular piece out. But basically 2 of my kids were, for lack of a better term, sexually assaulted by a almost teenager. They were very, very little. And so it was a giant age gap for what it was. So people try to play it off as innocent or kids, just exploring each other's bodies or whatever they wanted to call it. But it was very much rape. If you ask me, and our journey has been long. We have had many conversations, things you don't expect to have to tell your toddler. Like, yeah, it probably did feel good when that thing happened. But that's not an appropriate interaction.
Yeah.
And so learning how to have those conversations was definitely a tricky thing. But it's been a really eye-opening that sadly we're not unique.
Yeah, that's such a painful part of sexual assault to experience.
Yeah. And the piece that has literally traveled around the world is an open letter to children or to survivors of childhood sexual abuse
Mm.
that I wrote as a mama going, hey, if you did not have a mama rally around you, if you did not have people come and fight in your corner, because that often is honestly the story that I hear is I was abused and I told my mom and she said it didn't happen, or she said that whatever she chose to, like, whatever story she chose to tell herself to help her cope with it instead of actually helping the child deal with the trauma that had happened to them.
Yeah.
And so I have become a fierce advocate of listening to stories. And the amount of stories out there is gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned heavily is, like, it doesn't just go away. I was told by multiple people, even some who had some training of, I would say pastoral type training, not necessarily true counseling training, who would tell me things like, oh, they were young, and so they'll forget. They don't forget. I've been told things years later, like new things. And I've been told, oh, well, you handled it so well that, like, they're fine. No, like, my kids completely changed. Like, how they interacted with the world around them, how they interacted with me, completely changed.
Yeah.
And we've had to navigate those things. I've talked to other survivors who have told me things like, you'll probably have new layers as they come into new ages of knowing.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to get to some place and they're going to be like, oh, wait. So when that happened, that was this, which means this was this. And there'll be new levels of, like, realization and disgust and anger. And, like, we've walked through seasons of that, of, like, you know, and it's just crazy. Like, it's, I'm proud of where we are.
Yeah.
I think of different things we've walked through in different ways. We have, I don't know, challenged ourselves not to just hate it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's been a brutal.
My dog opened the door. Hold on. I knew she was gonna do something. Hold on.
I'm sitting here waiting for pterodactyls to fly down.
Okay. For those not listening on YouTube, for those watching on YouTube, you know what just happened. For those not watching, you should watch because it's always funny.
It is.
Okay. All right. Am I good?
You're good.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. So I'm proud of how we have chosen to walk it.
Yes, it was. When I have to say, like, when I first met you, that was one of the things you told me, and it was like as a mom, as someone who has been abused, there's like I need to protect other people's kids from what happened to my kids, because kids don't know. Sometimes they don't remember that what happened to them is not okay, and they can't do it to other people. So it was like one of the first things you told me, I think the second time we hung out. And it wasn't like it was weird the way, like, it was just so well done, because you weren't like, feel sorry for us, but you were like, you know, we're in a process of, like, working through what happened, and so, you know, this may come up. And it was like, I told my husband, and he was like, okay, yeah, just like, you know. And it kind of started us on a, like, parenting, like, did anything weird happen today, or did they tell you something that made you uncomfortable? And, like, it allowed us to start those conversations really young, as a precaution, because of what your boys had experienced. You know, it was just a neat like partnership in the way you handled it.
Yeah.
You know.
I like hearing, like, I've had a bunch of different parents in different situations. We like, because of your story, we started having conversations sooner. We started using anatomically correct body
Mm-hmm.
names. We started, and like, it makes me so stinking happy because I'm
Yeah.
like, if one more parent is alert,
Yeah.
if one more parent is, like, who knows what it could stop.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get being apprehensive to want to like walk
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like there's no, like, I get it. Like, I have very mixed feelings about our abuser's family because like we were close to their family.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I felt like the parents didn't take it as seriously as they should have.
Yeah.
Um and later in life, I actually had someone, I like randomly met them in like a nursing mother's room somewhere, and we started talking and realized we knew people who knew people. And I was like, oh, you may actually be privy to my story because you know people who know people who know people. And like, and so I reintroduced myself as like, hey, I'm this person. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're the mom. And I was like, yes. And she got so righteously angry at the other family in front of me that I was like, I have permission to be mad right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I was trying very hard to walk it in this like very Christian, very like godly way,
Mm-hmm.
that I forgot that God got angry,
He sure did.
And so I
Yeah.
was like, because I was just trying to be like, well, like they didn't know, or there was this. And the lady was like, oh no. She was like, that was crap. Like how they chose
Yeah.
to do this, how they did this. She's like, because she was privy to the other side. She was privy
Okay.
to that parent's parenting style and that child.
Okay.
And so she was watching all of that side unfold in real time. And she was like, they didn't do nearly enough.
Yeah.
And so whether you're a parent listening and your kid has been abused,
Mm-hmm.
or you're a parent listening and you know that your kid has done something that was awful and you're disgusted and you're like, you need to face both head on.
Yeah.
Like you need to face both head on. I had to have very frank conversations with one of mine because you get exposed to stuff, so you get curious.
Yep.
Like that's super normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be like, hey bud, like this is not an area where we do those things. And I explained why, and I did all the things I could think to do, but I was like, I'm not going to sit back and allow you to potentially go down a road that's going to end up causing immense harm and pain.
Yeah.
And so I very strongly was like, no, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
But I didn't hide from it. And I think so often when we're in pain, we hide. Whether we are the victim or we are walking with a victim, we're a perpetrator.
Yeah.
There's pain, and so we hide.
Yeah. I think there's shame attached to all three of those.
Oh, for sure.
People too. Maybe not the person walking with someone, but
There was shame as a mom.
I was gonna say, but as a mom, you weren't walking with them. You were the mother of the victims. Mm-hmm. So, like me walking alongside you guys,
yeah,
like,
there probably wasn't shame
in
for
a
you
friendship.
so
There's more of like a righteous furiousness. Like
mm-hmm.
I'm angry, especially in the situation that it happened in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to share that, but it makes me have very strong feelings about those setups.
Yeah, and the fact that it was a church-related incident. Didn't happen in the church building, but it did happen through church connections, and the kid had been in the classrooms with our boys. And then when we approached the church on it, it was very much swept under the rug.
Yeah, there was no church discipline.
No, we ended up being outcasted, not intentionally, but they wanted reconciliation.
Yeah.
And they wanted this, like, you know, we need to forgive, and we don't want to ruin this kid's life, and you know, we'll just make sure he doesn't ever get near your kids. And it's like, he can't be within 100 miles of my kids and me know it. Like,
Yeah, and it's
obviously
like,
he is, or well, he's not now because we moved away, but
yeah.
um,
Well, and it's like, we don't want to ruin his life, but sorry for the trauma
that he's
that your
caused.
kids are going through. It's like,
Mhm.
do you
Yeah,
see what you're doing? Like,
yeah,
it is very, for me, it's very hard as like an outsider to be like, oh, no, that made sense. It's like,
yeah.
that is backwards.
And I had a friend at the time who, again, was very much like, she was buying into everything the church was saying, and she was close to leadership. And she's like, I mean, this probably wasn't that bad. And then she saw my kid physically respond to her coming near him.
Hmm.
And she's like, he's not the same kid. And I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Like,
I always put not created for children on the YouTube.
yeah.
And I can put a little explicit in there.
Yeah.
It is not.
So I'm like, no,
This
he's
is one
not.
of those things where it's like, sometimes you just
Yeah.
have a friend, and she's a pastor's wife, and she's like, sometimes you just say the bad words because they need to be said, and then you move on. It's like, this is one of those situations where you say the bad word.
Yeah, that is an area where the bad word totally fits.
Yeah, it does.
And so, yeah, it was really interesting because in uh the months following,
Mm-hmm.
other like sexual assault trauma stuff became like, not within the church, but like in the media. So like
Kind of that
the
Me Too
yeah,
movement.
was
Okay.
happening. And a big story got publicized, and the pastor's wife and a bunch of people within that community was like lambasting that this, you know, college age drunk fraternity boy who did something stupid
Mm-hmm.
deserved to be like put on a pike and like
Mm-hmm.
paraded around, right? Like, he deserved death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, wait.
Hold on.
Hold on. Like, dumb drunk decision, not okay. But like, versus calculated, like the stuff that has come out about it was a calculated event. And it wasn't a one-time event.
Yeah.
That happened to my kids. I'm like, there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you make a dumb decision while drunk, not okay.
Yeah.
But that's still a different versus a calculated, methodical
Grooming
to kids and parents. Because things like, I've helped potty train before. When God told me, whatever you believe about hearing Holy Spirit or whatever, I don't. But I'm sitting there and I hear a whisper of, he groomed you too, Lauren. And I was like, what?
Mm.
I was like, no, like, it wasn't that nefarious. And he was like, no, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how? And he's like, how many times did you hear him say, I've helped potty train kids? And I was like, several. And I had kids in diapers still, like, they were little.
Yeah.
And he's like, what does that make you do? And I was like, I saw it as, oh, you're trying to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Like, I was a mom of a few littles at that point, and I was like, okay. And then it was like, it also normalizes seeing my child around him without pants on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that wasn't by
It wasn't.
chance.
No, that's a hard, like, learning those things in a situation like that is a completely different, like, life experience.
Yeah.
Because I look back to some of my story, and it's like, my parents were groomed by my rapist, like, for sure, like, they were. And I don't, and it's like, I think if they look back, because when I look back, I'm like, there it was. But because I've been educated. Our church actually has a program called Ministry Safe that people from our church, 2 attorneys created this program, and it's called Ministry Safe. And
I've
so
actually
it's like
taken it, which is why I was honestly surprised I didn't catch it. Because I'd taken it before.
before the event. Really? That's and that does, it's like that is hard because it's like when I watch it, I'm like, ugh, I hate this program. Like I love what they are doing, but I hate watching it because it's like you have to relive it. You have to experience it, but it's hard seeing it from like a parent's standpoint where it's like I got conned too.
Yeah. And I've had to walk that grief and that anger and that self loathing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have to continuously remind myself is once I knew, like it was immediate cutoff. And like I said, I've had so many people reach out and share their own stories with me that they are amazed that was my response.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't the response that they got. And I was like, oh, no, like there was no choice in my mind.
Yeah. No, there was. Yeah.
I'm like, you harmed my kid. You have zero access.
Yeah.
And this is where, okay, so at some point, church will probably be a conversation that we have.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things that led my husband and I away from the church is like they wanted us to have a freedom session or like a prayer session after. And they came and prayed over our children. And the person leading it told my child who asked to see his abuser because his abuser was his friend, that his abuser was in timeout and that they could be friends again one day. And I was like, you did not just come into my home and tell my child that like it was essentially like a slap on the wrist and they could be buddies again. I was like, this wasn't a squabble over a toy.
No.
Where the kid like punched my kid.
Yeah. No, it was a very serious incident where timeout was not the appropriate.
Yeah, and you can be friends again with him one day. I'm like, no. Like they left my house and I was like, I know you were just told that, but that's not actually an option.
Yeah.
Like we will not be engaging with this person ever again.
Yeah.
And they had to grieve that, and they lost friends because the church disappeared, and so all of their friends, a lot of my support system, like all disappeared through that journey. But because we don't like just being like, it sucks here on She Talks a Lot.
I mean, but straight up, it does.
It does.
And it's okay that it sucks and that you're angry.
Yeah.
And that you're still angry.
Oh.
Like, you have a right to. I mean, your boys are well-adjusted men who are growing up wonderfully, but that does not change the fact that something heinous happened to them.
Yeah.
And they, and it takes, I mean, I don't want to take away from it by like trying to like make it okay. Cause like for a long time, what I did with my story is like, well, the Lord's going to use it. Yeah. 100% he's going to use this. Like without a doubt, he will use it. He will use everything we go through, but it does not discount the amount of work, the amount of grief, the amount of anger, the amount of loneliness and isolation you guys have faced as a family, as a mom, as a parent, in your marriage. Like all the things that y'all have gone through were, yes, they will, you'll be able to walk someone through a bad season, and you've been able to be the mom and like, a stand-in to just hear the story and say, that is not okay.
Yeah.
But it does suck. But I do not want you to discount what it has actually done to your family.
Yeah.
Because as an outsider, I've seen what it's done to your family. Like, and I'm an outsider in a weird way. It's like I wasn't a part of that, but I've been able to walk with you through other things that, if you unravel it, there's a thread that will always run back to that night or that day or that
Yeah.
whatever, those time frames.
Yep.
So sorry to cut you off, but I
No.
was like, I need to, like, we can't discount what you guys have been through and worked through, because it does show God's goodness and what you guys have been able to accomplish through persistence. That
But
does
it's
not,
definitely been through persistence.
yeah.
And I appreciate you putting that, because there's days where I try to like gloss over
Yeah.
the
Well, yeah,
amount of
because you don't want to, it sucks to like remember, like we talked about, motherhood's like a thankless, tireless, monotonous job. It's like, it's, if you look at it with that lens, it is a beating. It is the least appealing version of life
right.
ever. But if you look at it through the lens of like, I get to spend time with my kids, and I get to watch them learn to do things, and I get to like try, like if you look at it through a different lens, it's not, but sometimes you got to look at it like, this is mind numbingly gut wrenching hard work. I don't want to do it today. I just want to be mad, and I just want to be bitter. I'm gonna be. And tomorrow we'll get up and we'll work for it. But today, I'm not gonna do the work.
Yeah. No,
So.
and that's good, because I mean, it was quite literally years of, I mean, the beginning, like I said, I started with a very like rah rah, like me and God, we got this, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then I went to like anger, and then I was even working through the anger and getting like further through it. And then I had a faith fallout, which is a very long story that maybe one day we'll get through. And in that journey, like I've learned how much work is actually required, because it's not something that just happens passively. And yes,
No.
prayer is active, but it's more than prayer. It's more than reading a couple of scriptures and dwelling on that, and like that's our renewed mind. Like there has been hours and hours of research, of podcast listening, of seeking out Instagram influencers that teach, how to get through trauma, how to get, how to have attachment things with your kids, because it's not been a passive journey.
No.
Like, it's been a very active, grueling journey.
Yeah.
But I do see fruit, sometimes in higher quantities than others.
Yeah.
One really weird, cool kismet God moment story is my husband and I were on a date. God, I can't remember when it was. I don't remember if it was like this last year. I think it was the year before. Like, I think it was Christmas 21.
Okay.
And he was in a state of like just frustration with what my boys have been through, and our boys, not mine.
Yeah. I know what you meant. Sometimes as a mom, it's like,
yeah,
they're mine.
mine.
But like you said, they're your husband's kids too.
So there's no confusion.
They
My
are his
husband
too.
is my baby daddy.
100% they're his. They
One
have
and the
his
same.
face.
And he was expressing, he's like, there's nothing, no, like not one thing has been good that's come out of this. And I was like, okay. And like I was still trying, like I try to live from a place of hope always.
Yeah.
And I opened up my email, and I had an email from someone who had found my post, and she said, I was going to take my life tonight, but I found your post on Pinterest, and I'm gonna keep trying.
Oh my gosh, like I have literal chills. I've been cold all morning, but I have like chills, and like my nose is running because my eyes are about to, like, how on earth did she find that? There's not a how. I know how she found it. I know exactly how it was found. But it's like, I don't ever understand situations like that where it's like, I do not hear me say I do not understand being suicidal, because I 100% do understand being suicidal. I don't understand how, like, I think she was maybe looking for something.
Yeah, she wanted hope, but she felt no hope.
And it was like, you know.
And so she happened to stumble across.
That's amazing.
And so, like, we're still on this date, like, where he had at dinner been like, nothing good, that one thing. And I was probably in the mood in the car. And so I pulled up the email that I never look at because it's the one directly linked to my blog. And so I don't check it as often. And I started like tearing up in the car, and he's like, what? And I was like, you just said nothing good has come from this. I was like, apparently someone didn't take their life today because of this situation. And he was like, well, crap. Like,
well, dang it.
Yeah. And I was like, I get that it's hard, and I get that it sucks. And like, no, never did I want my kids to live through this.
No.
Ever. But one, we aren't just letting it fester and stew in them. And so I know they'll be more equipped, and they will grow stronger, and they will be better men because of it.
Yes.
And two, like, it's clearly having an impact. Like, I have literally had conversations with young people from around the world. We're talking like South Africa,
That's
Israel,
amazing.
Ireland, like all over, who have been like, I found your post. And
do you always know which one it is? Like when you get an
usually,
email?
yeah. And partially because at the end of that post, I said, hey, I get like leaving a public comment may be hard. So here's my direct email. Here's my Instagram.
Nice.
If you need to tell your story, or if you need someone to hear you, like, I'll hold space for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I've had moms reach out and be like, I just found out about my kid, or and it's heavy and it's hard, and walking it where I don't then carry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, one, because you have to carry your own story. And I do feel like sometimes when you're just a listener, like, it's not your responsibility to try and fix it. So it's like,
yeah, but
those are
there's
heavy, heavy stories.
Yeah, and there's some that, like, it's been adolescents still in situations that are potentially dangerous, and like, I can't do anything.
No,
and those are hard. Because I'm like, I can only guide you as far, like, in as much as I can.
Yeah. I'm about to have a kid bust through.
All right.
What? I'm still recording, so I need this. Oh man, I'm sorry. Can y'all not? Because you were asked very specifically to not fight, so you need to step out of the room. Both of you need to get out of the room, and you need to apologize for being rude to each other. You need to apologize for being rude, and shut the door, please. Oh man, yeah. Anyways, I did have a question.
Yeah.
And then I got interrupted. I forgot it. Okay, you were saying like the minor. So how do you in that situation? Because legally, you really can't do much.
Yeah. Well, and partially, a lot of times I don't have enough information where I could do anything, anyways.
Yeah, but like, what kind of like, what I mean, like legally, you can't like. So if someone's listening and they're like, I have a friend's kid who's in this situation, or my kid's friend is in this situation, and I can only pour so much into their life because of I'm not their guardian, I'm not in any way a part of this.
Yeah.
What kind of encouragement or
so I would say if you officially know, and you have now I have a kid. Open the door. I can't reach that far. What's up? That's fine. I love you.
Oh, you're so much nicer when they shut the door. I'm like, go apologize to each other.
It was just an ask for an apple, though.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. That's why. So if you actually have data, information, names, addresses, potential perps, call the cops.
Okay.
Legally, that was one of the biggest things with the church, is they legally were obligated to do it. And if it happened within the church like building.
Uh-huh.
Like if we ever found out it happened in the church building, we have lawsuit like case.
Yeah, for sure.
And the police department would have gone after the pastors because they're mandatory reporters.
Yeah.
But they didn't report. So I reported.
Yeah.
Like, I called the cops on I didn't call the cops. I filed CPS reports on myself, basically.
Gosh.
Which was nauseating.
Yeah.
Because
is that the way you have to do that?
Yeah, well, you have to file a report, and your kids because it was another minor, it was a report that way. What you would do if it was an adult, you would just call the cops, and you would say, "Hey, this happened," and they would probably still do a CPS report, and they would probably, you would. There were forensic files done on my kids. There was a forensic interview. There was all sorts of things that had to happen. Nothing like having CPS show up at your door.
Nothing like having to report yourself to CPS.
Right?
Like.
And because I was proactive, they very quickly were like, "You clearly aren't hiding." Like,
yeah, this is totally not coming from your home.
Yeah, y'all care a lot because you're the ones, but it's still scary. It's still to be like, "Hey, look at my parenting, and please don't take my babies.
Let's put us under a microscope voluntarily."
Yeah.
Okay, so did CPS step in, and did they do anything?
Hang on. Yes. I love you. Do you need something? Okay. Well, you are welcome to try to solve that problem, but what did I ask? Yep. Thank you. I know.
Heartbreak.
Okay, so CPS for that family, basically because the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not minor, but like the juvenile. There we go. System is overrun. Because the church had put him into therapy. They were like, and he was, I think, like 6 weeks away from a birthday where it would have been an immediate arrest. Like, it was like within a very small window that it would have been an immediate arrest. So basically, that he got like don't do this again and continue going to therapy. And that was it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. From everything I have been told by trauma therapists, by a bunch of different people, if he didn't get true psychological help, the odds he won't be a repeat offender is pretty slim.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, like,
yeah,
that's hard.
So, choosing not to stalk like registries and actively choosing to not tell people who were in military high up things that can do things.
Yeah, that's a hard one because it's like, man, there's this like, as a mom, you want retribution, maybe is the word. Like you want to see him get his.
Yeah.
But as like a believer, it's like, it's not mine to give.
Yep.
And still, maybe even not as a believer, I think some people hold true to that where it's like karma, what goes around comes around. It's like, it's not mine to give, and it will come back. I
just got to choose to trust. And I pray protection over people they may encounter.
Yeah. Because it's like, man, that's a hard one to navigate, because it's definitely not a normal response to be like, live and let live.
Yeah, like that's been my biggest thing. Is like my prayer has been like, may any victims be heard and be quickly heard. Like, there's times that I'm scared. Like I see things, I'm like, I could have done this better. I could have done this faster. Because there was stuff said earlier by one of my kids that made me go, huh? But it was one of those, it just seemed so improbable.
Yeah. So, okay, if you don't mind, and you don't
Mhm.
have to because this is a hard story. How old were they, and how did you find out?
2 and 3.
Bleh. I think I knew
And
that, and I just
uh-huh.
don't want to lock that stuff
Um,
in your brain.
yeah, you don't. One of which was still in diapers,
Mm-hmm.
hence the
Which
potty
is where the
training.
potty training conversations.
And the 2-year-old at one point had made a comment about an activity that had happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably want to talk to my husband before I
Yeah.
get
No.
more
I
details than
completely.
that.
Yeah. No. Completely understand.
But it was at like the dinner table, and so we asked a bunch
Okay.
of questions, but it was a very
So it
and
wasn't like it wasn't like you were changing a diaper and there was like obvious.
no,
Okay.
no,
That's why I was like, I think you and I have had this conversation
yeah,
privately, but I was like,
no, it
I
was
mean, I know
definitely
we
like
have.
that. And then I asked my older one, I'm like, has this happened to you? Like,
Mm,
and he's like, no. And it was very like, it was just a mismatch thing.
yeah. Well, like
Uh,
they were 2 and 3, and
yeah,
I love that they were like talking to you guys, just like that y'all had already set up a home that was like available for
yeah,
communication.
yeah. It was just
That's a huge takeaway.
it was dinner time. Like we were just
Yeah.
sitting around the table talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm a huge believer in like just having lots of conversation with your kids, and
Yeah.
I'm big on dinner time being a time around the table. Um,
So is
thank
my
my
husband.
thank my grandmother for that because it was not something I grew up with. But
Yeah.
and so that conversation happened, and I was like, okay. And so I just started paying more attention.
Yeah. Okay.
That one started like crying for the kid over me whenever he was upset. I can't tell if this is knocking at my door. What, Emers? Okay, well, you may not hang out right there. You can go do math. You can go outside. You can go look at a book. Ask Judah to help you. Tell him that mommy asked him to. Okay. And so yeah, just lots of like, okay, that's interesting. And then we were supposed to go to their house for a Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid was going to be the one watching my kids while we were at the Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
And we were literally in line at a bank when one of my kids threw up all over himself. Like, and he had been fine all day. I was like, well, that's weird. And banks have like the cameras. And they're like, ma'am, is everything okay? And I was like, my kid just threw up everywhere. And
That sucks.
they're like, can we do something? Like, can you send me paper towels in the tube? And so they sent paper towels down. And I'm like,
Oh, you were in the drive-through.
yeah, I was in the
I thought you were
drive-through.
inside the bank. Okay.
Yeah. I was in the drive-through. Like, so like the teller was like watching,
Oh man. You
via
were
the
like,
cameras.
what?
I'm like crawling in the back of my van. And I was like, if you could send me paper towels, that'd be great. And so that Bible study was that night, and like I was like, well, you'll just take the others. It'll be fine. I'll just keep this one at home. Well, then another one spiked like 102.
Mm.
And this was a family who had a bunch of kids. So if it had been like a 99, they'd been like, oh, he's fine. Just bring him. Like, would have been the
The consensus. Yeah.
But 102,
That's a
it's
high.
like, yeah, it's a high fever. And so I was like, I guess we're not going tonight.
Mm.
And like the next day, they were both perfectly fine.
Mm.
And I can't remember if it was that day or like the following is when another one told me their story. And I was like, okay, we're done.
This is too many.
And I was like, I called my mom and I was like, and she's a licensed counselor. And I was like, and I'd already told her the other one. And I was like, what do you think? Should I be She's like, just be more alert, Lauren. Like, she's like, it probably is nothing. I don't think she would advise that now.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so I was like, okay. And so I called her and I was like, Mom. And she's like, baby, no, like that's like it was real. And I was like, okay. And so that's when we like everything kind of switched and we went into like protective,
yeah,
you know, bubble mode. And yeah, it's been a long road.
man. That is so okay. So last question.
Yeah.
And it's not my story to share, so I will be very vague. A very precious and wonderful friend of my son's was in a he's recently been adopted, but there's a lot of like anything that you can think happening.
Yep. Lots of trauma, kid. Okay.
It's a lot of trauma. And so because of our conversation with you and when we met you and just kind of how that opened the door, we've been able to, we've said a lot of bad things have happened to him. A lot of bad people have entered his life. You know, that's what we've said. And so we have set up that, like, anything weird? Did he tell you anything? Because as friends to this family, so as an outsider, as someone who loves the kid because he's close to us, how do we better support families who either it's their, you know, biological birth children, the kids they're adopting, kids they're close to, nieces, like how do people from the outside better support these families who are trying to get their kids on a journey of like healing and removing the shame, removing the guilt? And how do we equip our own kids? So how do you protect your non-abused kids?
Yeah.
From even just you, because I know you had more sense, you know, and you have some that didn't experience that. So it's like, how do we rally and advocate with you guys in this process? And two, how do we protect the non-abused kids without isolating them from kids who have experienced things?
So I think being willing to sit in the pain with the parent.
Okay.
Letting the parent feel the pain. Because I think for a long time, I felt like I wasn't allowed to be angry or sad, and my focus had to only be on my kid, and or I was just too, like, I was too much. I was too sad. Like it destroyed me for a long time.
I honestly can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine it, but like I can't stomach imagining it.
Yeah.
So I can't actually imagine it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And so, like, being willing to allow that parent to be in pain. Simon Sinek once said that, like, how did he word it? He's like, I can't remember what he was talking about. He's like, he says, like, go on. Like, he, like, when people start talking, instead of, like, trying to get them to stop talking about it or it's like, okay, go on. Like, go on. Like, so they can move through that part.
Yes.
And so inviting them to go on. Like, I hear you, I see you, this, like, and being okay. And then having grace for their kid and still loving their kid is huge, because the amount of, like, embarrassed, hidden, I didn't want my kids to be around other kids because what if they said something? What if they did something? What if, you know, not kids will say things sometimes, like when they're playing, or like it just comes out, like they don't know not to talk about it. Especially when you invite them to talk about it in your home. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, I gave you that heads up, like, hey, just so you know, just in case my kid tells your kid. And not being scared of that, and then being willing to have those conversations is huge.
Okay.
Because there were so many people that, like, would either just stop hanging out with me, or, like, I lost a lot of access to kids that were like, parents of itty bitties were fine being around my kids, but
peers
peers and stuff it just felt very disjointed, and like,
Yeah.
we don't want our kid to be exposed to this hard thing. And I get it. Like, I don't want my kid to be exposed to a hard thing either. But allowing your kids to be around them and having those hard conversations of like, hey, and like, as a parent, like, I always try to teach my kids, like, hey, we don't just tell just anyone.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to bring up everything all the time. But sometimes it just happens, and not running away from it when it does.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I remember when we came to your house, everything was in one space. Everyone was in one space, and I think that that was intentional. That was by design.
Oh yeah.
By you guys, and I think that that's something that naturally creates like a boundary.
Yep.
But it also, and it's just like an odd thing. It's like, that's how we actually prefer to have playtime at our house too. Not for any reason, but it's just like, you don't really need to like isolate in a bedroom. Like, you don't need to close the door. Like, if you're telling secrets, we probably shouldn't be doing that anyways. And so there's, are there things that y'all do in social situations that have kind of helped form like good, solid peer friendships?
We're still working on those.
Okay. It's hard, especially as a homeschool family.
And we moved right before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
An hour and a half away from people that we did know.
Yeah.
And so, we moved 6 months before the pandemic hit, not even quite 6 months, but I had a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't have time to integrate anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then the world shut down. And then as the world was coming back to life, we found out Finley was deaf.
Yeah.
And so, like, we very intentionally got my kids into VBS last summer and Awana this year so they could get peers.
Yeah.
And friends. Like, there's 5 of them. There's a gaggle of brothers. We're friends. But to get those, like, outside.
Yeah. Yes. And those are important. Like, those are equally as important as brotherhood.
Yeah.
They're a different form of brotherhood.
Yep.
So, this was a very good conversation. I do genuinely appreciate you sharing this, because I think that, your blog post has reached tons and tons of people outside of this little community. And so it's like, I think that I'm hoping that this video reaches the people who need to hear it, either from, my end, where it's like, we have been fortunate not to walk that specific path, but we want to, partner with parents who have, and be good friends and good supporters, or parents who are currently walking in and are like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because I'm so mad right now, and I don't, I'm blind with rage.
And if you meet someone who's in that stage, give them food.
Yeah.
Like, it's no different than a loss. And like, you bring casseroles to funerals, and you bring meals to moms who just had babies. A family who just got rocked by an abuse situation.
Just show up.
Just show up with food, show up with coffee. Because like, so much of that season is so fuzzy. That I was just surviving. And so, meals, like, and when you're super angry, being hungry doesn't help.
No.
And so sometimes it can help that, like, you still have to work through it. Anger's still going to be there, but you don't need to add hangry
to real anger.
Yeah.
So, there's some training that I recently received that, like, when people are in trauma or are reliving trauma, one of the last things that you should do is to hand them a tissue. Is that something that you've learned, that when people like try to like console you, it kind of shuts you down to that?
Yeah, I definitely, and I don't know if many people try, like, I know it would. So people that I wouldn't necessarily consider consoling, I felt like it was pity, and maybe that's why.
Okay.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not that, like,
they just wanted to know and hear it to know, and then when it was like, oh, this is real,
that
like,
really, that's hard. I'm sorry, and it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, how about you get down here with me and you get like
Let me snot on your shirt, dude.
right? Yeah, like exactly.
It's true. Like,
And so like the passive like here's a tissue or here's this like platitude of like sorrow
yeah,
isn't helpful. Um, I didn't need someone to be like, where do we go bury a body either? I did, but like,
yeah. There's a balance. I mean, like to know that
it's an
kind of
option.
support and rallying is like it's like, oh wow, okay, no, but thank you
But
for
yeah,
loving us enough to
that you would.
risk your,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yes, I
No,
think
and
that
that
is a
does help
valid.
because when I've had hard situations, different life situations, but I've had friends that I've been able to show up at and they've handed me a glass of whiskey and been like, come share.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was far more impactful than people are like, can I pray for you?
Mm-hmm.
I like prayer's not bad. I am an
Nope.
advocate of prayer.
Yeah.
Or the oh wow, that sounds really hard. I'll be praying about that. It's like, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
How about you come? I mean, I would say watch my kids, but I didn't want people watching my kids at that
Yeah.
point.
No.
Like come sit with me in my mess is what I needed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't trust anyone to actually watch my children, so I didn't want to leave them, but I also didn't want the responsibility of them at that point either, because
Yeah.
I was so exhausted. So
That's wild.
having another
Yeah.
adult human
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes helpful. Do you hear that?
I do, but that's okay though. They've been so good the last 4 episodes, so
Yeah,
it's
they're
good.
definitely taking their turn.
Yes. Well, and I think sometimes that's the fact that, there's probably an anxiety in your house today. There's probably an
Oh yeah,
a drone of just like nervous energy because it's like one, it isn't your story. It part of it is your story and you've shared that, but
yeah,
the big chunk of it is the boys. And if at some point they want to talk about it, then you've done a
yeah,
very good job not telling their story so
yeah,
that they can put a voice to it themselves and it not being like, well, my mom already told the story, so it's like,
yeah,
no, this is what, and this is how, and this is what I feel. It's like
yeah. And,
you've done a very good job of making it their story.
but as a mom, I definitely have a story.
Yeah, exactly. But as a mom, you have your own story that you've walked through because of what they went through.
Yeah,
So I'm sure there's a vibe in the house today that a
yeah.
lunch and some cuddles might.
Oh yeah, we'll probably snuggle on the couch after
Yes.
watch
So
episode of Phineas and Ferb.
the go-to.
My go-to.
Um,
Yep.
okay. I think that about wraps up. Did you have anything else?
No, I
Okay.
think I would say I should probably like check our YouTube occasionally too if I'm gonna say this. But like if this is something that like resonates or you want more direct conversation,
Mm,
like I am willing, and that's one thing I've tried to do, and there's times I have to put some boundaries
mm-hmm,
around it.
for sure.
But my heart is to come alongside and partner with people, um, because it's a shitty thing to walk through on your own.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of organizations and programs, and so I haven't even. I sometimes just do this. I haven't talked to the owner of this specific one or the creator of this one
Yeah.
about sharing her information, but I'm just going to because I've felt like this whole time I needed to. It is called Phoenix, and
Okay.
it's outside of the TCU campus, and it is primarily for college students. It is, if I believe right, it is geared at females, but they have trauma counseling.
Wow.
They have support groups. They have a whole system of things that you need
Yeah.
when you come out of the wake of that. And so, I know there's programs out there. I just personally know the person who's creating this one.
Yeah. And that's amazing. It's hard to find stuff for parents. I think that's where it gets really hard.
And I do believe that they have, because they can't work with minors, I
Okay.
think they have resources that they guide
Yep.
parents to.
And if you're
So I
in
can.
Texas, like every county has an advocacy center.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we've gotten care through the advocacy center.
Okay.
Ironically not in the county that it initially happened in, but
Isn't that
where we live now
Mm-hmm.
has taken on our case and
That's
given
amazing.
Yeah. So like there are resources. It's just sometimes hard to like
dig
dig them
through
out.
which ones you need and which ones are going to be applicable to you. Because, if you're not a believer, you don't want to go to Christian trauma counseling.
Right. Yeah.
Or if you are and it's just, so we'll try to pull together our resources and put as many as we can in the show notes. But yeah, this was a heavy one and it was a long form, and I am glad, because I think that sometimes cutting these stories short doesn't do them justice.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing, and
Thank you.
we love you guys, and
Yeah.
stay awkward.
Absolutely.
Do it. It's the best.
It really is.